Okay, everybody, we're going to get going this morning. Thank you all for coming. My name is Kelsey Doom. I'm the president and CEO of the Brookings Area Chamber of Commerce and the staff liaison for our Public Affairs Committee who puts on these forums and things like that. So thank you all for being here this morning. A couple of announcements here. We want to do a few thank yous. Special thank you to Kweku, who is in the digital room back there on a Saturday morning. We appreciate him being here and helping us record this. We have our coffee sponsor, Cool Beans, and our season sponsors are Brookings Economic Development and Vision Brookings. We also want to thank our task force. We've got Leanne Pierce, Andrew Rasmussen, Kayla Gullickson, Larry Tiedemann, and Russ Helgerson couldn't be here today, but he's also part of our group. So thank you to those individuals who help us put these initiatives on. We are not doing the District 8 forum this morning. We're only doing District 7. Two of the three candidates had some things come up and weren't able to make it. But Greg Zimmerman, do you want to raise your hand back there? He is a District 8 candidate. He is here and would love to talk to anybody who wants to learn more about him and his platform. So because the city staff and our volunteers do love to get out of here and get on with their weekend, Greg will meet you downstairs outside of the front doors if you want to chat with him afterwards. So, yes. The District 8 forum won't be rescheduled. What we're going to do is take the questions here, put them in a digital platform, let them answer, and then publish that. Yep. Okay, well, without further ado, I'm going to give it over to Angie Boersma, longtime moderator for our chamber forums. She is owner of Ideate Architecture and a past county commissioner. Thank you, Angie.
Yeah, thanks.
Take it on.
Sounds good. Good morning, everyone. We're going to get right into things because I know there are a stack of questions off to my right. Larry Tiedemann, thanks so much for sorting your questions. If you continue to have questions, I know the Public Affairs Committee members are going to be roving around, grabbing those and bringing them up for us, so please do ask your questions. We're going to start this morning with openings, and everybody gets a 2-minute opening. It's an opportunity to introduce yourself, your platform, your background, those types of things. We're actually going to start ladies first on the end, so we'll start with Mellissa Heermann.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mellissa Heermann. I'm delighted to be here with everybody today. Thank you to the Chamber for hosting this event and for all the sponsors, especially Cool Beans Coffee for caffeinating us this morning. A little bit about myself. I've been married to my husband, Cody, for 21 years. We have 3 kids in the Brookings School District. A little information about my educational background. I have an international business degree from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And I have my master's in operations management from SDSU. My passion for public service began at a very early age. I've been fortunate enough to be able to experience public service in multiple capacities. I had the honor of serving as a Lake Preston City Council member and then also as mayor of Lake Preston. Following that, I served on the Brookings School Board for 6 years, and it has been an honor to represent District 7 for the last 2 years in the South Dakota House of Representatives. Serving has always been a core value of mine, shaping how I lead and how I make decisions. Through these roles, I've gained invaluable experience navigating difficult challenges, working collaboratively, and most importantly, listening to the voices of my constituents. I believe that thoughtful decision-making begins with understanding the needs and the concerns of the people that I serve. As a servant leader, I'm deeply committed to improving the lives of those in our communities. With my background, leadership experience, and dedication to putting people first, I'm prepared to hit the ground running and continue to represent you in Pierre. Thank you again for this opportunity today.
Thank you. Moving on, Blake Stevens.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for setting up the forum today, and also the Brookings Economic Development Corporation, Vision Brookings, and Cool Beans for sponsoring today's event. Like Angela said, my name is Blake Stevens, and I'm running for District 7 of House of Representatives because I believe it's time to bring real change for the working people. I grew up in a small town in the Midwest, working blue-collar jobs where I saw firsthand the challenges faced by hardworking families, low wages, lack of health care, the constant struggle to make ends meet. That's why I returned to college. I study political science here at SCSU. I'm a non-trad student. I'm 31. I wanted to go to law school, and you need a bachelor's degree for that, so that's why we're back here. I chose SDSU because I love the school size, I love the class size. I made this decision over the University of Minnesota just because I wanted to be an actual student, know my teachers and my classmates instead of just being a number. I returned to college to study political science because I want to fight for the people who have been left behind. The working class is the backbone of our economy, and you deserve leaders who stand up for you, not corporate interests. I will fight for fair wages, protect workers' rights, and ensure that every family has access to affordable health care and quality education. I'm committed to building a future where everyone has the opportunity to succeed, no matter where they came from or what they do. Together, we can build a stronger, more just South Dakota, and that's why I'm asking for your support to send me to Pierre so I can work tirelessly for the people of District 7. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, Fedora Sutton-Butler.
Good morning. It's great to have a friend, isn't it? Good morning, Brookings City and Township, Aurora Township, Madera and Madera Township. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you for the Chamber for convening this. I am Fedora Sutton-Butler. I have lived in Brookings for 34 years. I came here with my husband, whose parents lived here. That would be Eugene and Dorothy Butler. When my husband passed away, I did not decide to go and live somewhere else because Brookings had become home to me. My children had gone to school here in the Brookings system, and I taught for 25 years at SDSU. I also taught, I was a substitute teacher here in the Brookings system, etc. One of the things I noticed in the time that I've lived here is that the legislature became a contentious group, and they did not listen to the voters. During the last sessions, they voted against landowners' rights, women's health care, free speech on college campus, and took decisions about vulnerable teens out of the hands of their parents. Some of them skipped votes, etc. I will work to ensure that your curriculum, education is up on my platform, teachers pay, that the experts control the schools and not legislatures. I would keep land use decisions in the hands of landowners.
That's time.
Okay.
I apologize, but that is time. So just a reminder to the candidates, Kelsey's holding up our 10-second notice and our stop notice. So if you're ever wondering, that's where we're looking as time goes. So thank you so much. Last but not least, Roger DeGroot.
Good morning, everyone. And I will also congratulate or thank the Chamber and Kelsey for putting this together and give us an opportunity to speak to you folks this morning. My wife and I moved to Brookings 18 years ago, and I'm going to one-up the representative over here. We've been married over 50 years, and I can't remember what you said, 18 or 21, okay. Anyway, we moved here 18 years ago, and we really fell in love with this community. And this community has given so much to my wife and myself and my family that after I retired 2 years ago, I decided I'm going to run for the House with some encouragement, some friends here in town, and I did that. And I won that seat with your help, with your vote, and your support. Now I'm running for re-election once again. For the past 2 years, I sat on the House Education Committee, and we accomplished much there, and I'll talk about that later. I also sat on the House Taxation Committee. I sit on the Medical Marijuana Committee, Oversight Committee, and I also sit on the Rules Review Committee. And that last one's really important because we meet once a month all year long reviewing the rules that have been promulgated because of some agencies received new bills and laws. As most of you know, my background has been in K-12 education. I've been in education for over 40 years. I'm retired now, but I spent 40 years in education. I was a teacher, a coach, an elementary school principal, a superintendent, and the last 8 years of my career I spent here in Brookings as your superintendent. After that, I served as on the Brookings School Board for 3 years. And during the time that I was an elementary principal, I became the president of that organization, the state president. And during the time that I only have 10 seconds left, I'm excited to be here this morning, looking forward to the dialogue. And I hope over the next 60 minutes, we all have an opportunity to show our strengths and show what we can do in the next 2 years in Pierre.
Thank you so much. That 10-second warning sure is helpful in the corner. Thanks, Kelsey. We're going to go right into questions. Just a reminder, the responses for each of the questions will kind of rotate through in terms of order. It's 60 seconds per response. And if your response is similar, you don't necessarily have to add on to the previous person. You can concur and continue to move through if that's all right. So we'll move on to the first question, and we'll pose that first to Blake, and we'll kind of rotate through. So what do you currently do for a living, and what is your plan to manage the rigorous expectations of peer?
So currently, I actually work as a CA at the college, at the university. So we call that a community assistant, commonly known as a residence assistant. Outside of that, I am also the vice president of the College Democrats of South Dakota. So just very active in not only the community on campus, but the statewide organization and statewide Democratic Party. Outside of that, if I were elected, I would have to drop the CA role as it requires me to be on campus. So I would basically be 100% all in on the legislature. I would be at your beck and call whenever you need me. So,
great. Same question to you, Fedora. Absolutely. What do you currently do for a living, and what is your plan to manage the rigorous expectations of peer?
How do I plan to
manage the rigorous expectations on your time in peer?
Yeah, it's...
Gotcha. Perfect. As long as these, I don't know if these speakers are on. Maybe that's a Kwaku question. A lot of times the dais doesn't have its speakers on, but they are out in the house. I will endeavor to be more clear.
So the question is, what do you do for time expectations in peer?
Yep. What do you currently do for a living, and how do you intend to manage the rigorous time expectations in peer?
I will give 100% of my efforts and time to your business in peer. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Roger.
Well, I'm retired, so it's easy for me to put 100% into this job. When I went out to Pierre 2 years ago, I was quite amazed at the expectations that are out there. The day starts at 6 because my two committees meet at 7:45, so you had to get up and prepare for that. And after you're done with session, there's always something to do in the evening and preparing for the next day. I have a lot of energy. And I'm not sure about how else to answer that question, but anyway, I've been out there 2 years. We've done well with that, and it's a taxing job and demanding job.
Great. Same question to you, Mellissa.
So currently, I am the director of the revenue cycle at Brookings Health System. As part of that role, I oversee the billing, insurance, anything to do with revenue as far as medical health records, coding. I also act as their privacy officer. But in addition to that role, which is significant and I enjoy it very much, the hospital has really worked with me, and we have a great partnership during session, which allows me all the time that I need to dedicate to session while I'm away. And I also have the support of my family while I'm gone to be able to help with all of our kids' activities and make sure to surround our family with love while I'm away. I believe that all of my efforts in the health system are really helpful and impactful to the roles that I have at the legislature, because I currently, or this last session at least, I sat on the House Health and Human Services. So it allows me to stay closely tied to the medical community and allows me to have more impact on the discussions during that committee.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Fedora. What is your plan to confront the lack of childcare for working parents in South Dakota?
This is a difficult task. However, I'm all about solutions. We have had, this is applicable to all of the concerns we are going to face, and that is funding. Where do we get the money? And I believe strongly that the funding is available. Say yes for marijuana, because the taxation there is brought billions into other states. We have the example of First Bank and Trust, which has the child care situation associated with the employee work. So what an excellent example. With the funding, we can make this happen. We ask Daktronics, we ask everyone, come on, help out your employers by maintaining a child care system.
Thank you. Roger.
I'll just add a few things. This is not just a South Dakota problem, this is a national problem. And a lot of it has to do with workforce development and having folks that will fill those jobs. It's a very important topic in Pierre right now. There's actually, Senator DeGroot, I wish he was here because he's on a committee that's really looking into that and trying to figure out why there's a disconnect between the cost of child care and the wages that the people that work at child care centers get and the closing of all the different businesses because of they can't have enough money to run their programs. Again, it's really a complex problem that's going to take a lot of work to fix. It's not a one thing that was going to cure it. And I think that Senator DeGroot and his committee will come up with some suggestions and try to figure out why there's a disconnect between the amount of money that we spend for child care and the amount of money that the people get.
Same question to you, Mellissa.
Thank you. I'm also looking forward to the results of the summer study on the child care. I think that everyone is impacted by this. I see it also at the hospital. I have employees that either don't have child care and can't work and need to stay home, or can't afford child care. And the math doesn't work in comparison to some of the pay that's out in the community. And so I'm looking forward to the summer study. I know they're looking for actual data. That is what will get us a thoughtful decision-making moving forward. So I'm looking forward to hearing the result of that study and being able to make good decisions from there.
Thank you. Blake.
Everything they added was great, but there are a few things that I think is missing in this conversation. One is universal pre-K. If we allow universal pre-K and actually fund that frees up a lot of the childcare needs between the ages of 0 and 3. With the access to universal pre-K, we have all of the, just right before kindergarten, all of those students, all of those children, they'll be taken care of. Also, we need to start actually thinking about long-term paid family leave when a new child is born or a pregnancy is happening. I'm talking 6 to 9 months of paid paternal and maternal leave. Many major countries around the world are able to do this. Why can't we do it? We have the funding. We should be focused on that. But I think it really starts with freeing up all the daycares for the pre-K age children, so we have access for 0 to 3.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start with Roger. If elected and initiated Measure 28 passes, what plans do you have to balance the budget and still provide the necessary services to South Dakotans?
For some reason, I can't understand. I do have a hearing issue, so...
I'll happily repeat. If elected and initiated Measure 28 passes, what plans do you have to balance the budget and still provide the necessary services to South Dakotans?
That's a really, really good question. And there's really, I wish I would have 10 minutes to talk in this, but I only have 60 seconds. There really isn't a good way to balance the budget if that passes, because if you look at it in what it could cost, it's going to cost somewhere between $125 million and $650 million. And even if you look at the lowest number, it's going to cost 5% across the board. I guess what I'm trying to say is no new taxes. The only way you're going to balance a budget if it passes is we're going to have to cut programs for education, Medicaid, nursing homes, police and fire, all those things would have to be cut because there would be no new taxes, because this whole initiated 28, and hopefully we can talk more about it, it was very poorly written, and so it's going to end up in the state legislature or in the courts to decide what's going to happen. There's no way to backfill the amount of money that we lose here. And it doesn't even, I got 10 seconds left. The governor had a proposal out 2 years ago that cost $100 million, and that was just to reduce or eliminate 4.5% on groceries, not on consumables, but on groceries. That was more doable than this one.
Time. Thank you. Mellissa, same question to you.
Yeah, there are some flaws in this, some significant ones that would cause quite a ripple through the rest of the session if this would pass. I think a couple of points to note is when I've gone door to door and talked to people in the community, they've asked, well, you know, this was Kristi Noem's bill, she wanted this. There are a couple of discernible differences to note between the previous food tax that was proposed and this one. Kristi Noem's food tax defined food and food ingredients differently. This one talks about human consumption, and that's a significant difference because human consumption could be a lot of different things. Could be alcohol, tobacco, cannabis. I mean, I've heard some people say toilet paper. It's very broadly defined, or it isn't defined currently in statute, and so it could be really broadly applied. The other difference is that in Kristi's, she reduced the tax to 0%, but reducing it altogether means that municipalities could lose around $50 million because they also would not be able to tax.
Thank you. Blake.
Yeah, Mellissa and Roger make very good points. There really is no way to keep our current tax structure and the amount of funding we need without keeping this grocery tax. I do not see a world where we can remove the grocery tax and not have to add another tax somewhere. And talking about adding taxes in South Dakota is like the plague. You just do not want to bring that up. Like, just for an example, the budget proposal for Brookings was $72.8 million. $10.1 million of that comes from some form of sales tax, mainly on groceries. If we repeal a grocery tax, how are we going to be able to pay for new parks, new infrastructure, public buildings? Like, this proposal even brings up restorations for the bathrooms in the library. Like, these are things we need, and if we repeal a grocery tax, we cannot fund them. So,
thank you. Fedora.
Okay, guys. Poor children or profits or money? I know that you are going to choose to make sure that children are fed, okay? So what do? We know all the ins and outs and rest of it. We have to say yes to removal of those taxes. The only other state is Mississippi that has such taxation on food. It is regressive. So how do we solve it is what we should be looking at. And I'm telling you guys, you gotta say yes to Measure 29. States are receiving over $3 billion in funding, okay, on a consumable. Marijuana is equivalent to alcohol and cigarettes, okay? So let's let people have their marijuana, tax it, fund all the things we are in need of, including mental health. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next, and this one we'll start with Mellissa. So please provide your thoughts on Referred Law 21, which is our pipeline transmission referred law.
So Referred Law 21 is speaking about the Landowner Bill of Rights. It does contain a number of protections for landowners. It also talks about when things get escalated that the PUC would have some additional authorities over a statewide project. All the protections that are built into this bill are very good for landowners, and they're the things the landowners requested. Initially, a year ago, this was brought forward and they couldn't come to a consensus. And so all the different groups came together with a compromise package. They came together and said, okay, this is what we could all live with, and then SB 201 came out of that. And so as we were listening to that, additional negotiations and compromises were made throughout the process, but there were a lot of different voices at the table. I think a complicating factor about Referred Law 21 is there are landowners on both sides. We have an ethanol plant right here in Aurora, and there's a lot of different voices to consider when we're listening to our constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Blake, same question to you.
So the biggest problem that I see with this is, again, what Mellissa brought up. There are landowners on both sides. There's farm owners on both sides. One of the things that I keep reading about that keeps coming back up is the $1 per foot surcharge that the pipeline companies have to pay. A lot of people think this is not enough. It's more of like a way to bypass local government. A lot of people feel like the landowner's Bill of Rights isn't strict enough against the pipeline organizations, mainly the corporations who do not operate in South Dakota yet, but are looking at this as an opportunity to move into South Dakota. I feel like this needs to be talked about more, and currently, I have not talked to enough people to have the best educated answer for this. As of right now, I would say just put this back to a debate. Yeah.
Thank you. Fedora.
Okay, guys. Solutions. The answer is no. Okay? Though, as Blake has already said, this $1 per foot surcharge, it's just who is in control here? Are the landowners in control or not? Okay? They're not. This is passing it to other people. What is this? Tax relief and leak liability, ensure pipelines pay for damages. You guys know how difficult it is when something is broken and you have to go back to your insurance and say, look, we got to fix this. It isn't like they're going to naturally sign over their dollars to you, okay? This actually is going to end up at the Public Utilities Commission for them to make the decision. I suggest you put your efforts in determining who is going to be the next PUC commissioner so that you know that you will be represented. Thank you.
Thank you. Roger.
Again, I could speak for 10 minutes on this easily. This was by far the most contentious bill that we saw in Pierre last year. There were 11 pipeline bills that came in front of committee, and I think 3 maybe made it to the House floor. I want to make it clear that if you vote no on RL 21, you don't stop the pipeline. You just kill Senate Bill 201 that gives all kinds of rights to the farmers and the counties and farmers to get money to have them put the pipeline across their land as an easement. They don't lose their land. They can farm the land once it's gone. The misconception here is that if we defeat this and we vote no, it goes away. No, it goes into the courts. The only thing that, to me, that is a little bit contentious in this bill is that it gives the setbacks to the PUC. That's all it does. It gives the setbacks to the PUC instead of the counties, and that's local control. Well, if you're driving down the interstate going to Rapid City, if you go from one county to the next county and you go from 65 to 75 to 85, that would be the same thing from the pipeline running from Madison up to North Dakota. You have to have consistency on the setbacks, and that's why it's put in there.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. Blake, you'll be the first to respond. This question, do you support free speech rights on South Dakota campuses for shows and events, including drag shows, and if so, how?
Absolutely. I believe free speech rights are fundamental to not only the United States, but specifically college campuses. If we can't talk about like touchy subjects on a college campus, then what's the point of education? Education is supposed to challenge your preconceived notions about your reality. As a man who has lived all over the country, I have attended many a drag show, and I will tell you right now, they're some of the kindest, warmest people I've ever met in my entire life. The outrage and the misinformation surrounding these events is at times appalling. I will lay everything on the line to support any form of free speech on a college campus.
Thank you. Fedora.
Free speech is a must on university campuses. It is a must. We have brought our children to this point where they're now coming in and meeting others. It is a place for discussions to determine, this is an incredible environment. It's a university, exchange of ideas. With respect to drag shows, etc., every parent, and this goes to the book banning as well, every parent has the right to determine what their child should see or not see. It is important for the drag show folks to stipulate, is this a 13 plus or X-rated or whatever? Demand that of them. Because you decide what your child sees or what your child reads. That's it, guys. Parents control stuff. Do it.
Thank you. Roger.
Kelsey, you won't need your card on this one. This one came about because there was some bad advertisement for a drag queen show up on campus, and it became a big ruckus out in Pierre. I support free speech and those kinds of shows on campus for people over 18, over the majority age.
Thank you. Mellissa.
We had a number of bills about drag shows over the last 2 years. The last one that we discussed was more about should the event be held on campus in a state-funded university with taxpayer dollars. And so at the end of the day, the latest bill that was reviewed really included the same language that you can find in the own Brookings City Ordinance in different areas. I felt comfortable with that language that wasn't shutting down the activities or events. It was just saying it needed to move to a different location.
Thank you. The next question will begin with Fedora, and that is, how have you or will you work to improve education in Brookings?
Okay. I have to tell you, I visited with the teachers, school board members, and the education system. They are doing an excellent job with the resources they have. But we can improve on that. We can improve on it by having the funding mechanism changed in Pierre. We have to be able to assure that the funds that come here for education is education, teachers' salaries, recruitment, resources for the teachers, and not for the operation of the whole system. Out of the funds that come, you have to pay bus drivers and all the things that is absolutely necessary for a school to function. Change the funding mechanism in Pierre. We fix the problem here in Brookings.
Thank you. Roger.
First of all, you probably expect this from me, but I think our educational system does a wonderful job in Brookings and elsewhere in South Dakota. We do the best we can with the amount of money that we're given. And we do need to continue to work on increasing teacher salaries so we can put the best teachers in front of our students. We've done an excellent job over the last 2 years. We've given, I think, somewhere around a total of 11 or 12% increase over those 2 years, and now next year I think it'll be a little bit more lean because the government money dries up. But once again, the curriculum is pretty much dictated with our standards that are given to us from the state, and so we abide by that, and we do the best we can with the dollars that we have. And again, I want to say that some people say that it's not just for teacher salaries, and some of the money that we give out is dedicated just for teacher salaries at the university level and not for bus drivers and others. And if you look at the new accountability bill, it holds all of us accountable to give the amount of money the state gives to us as teachers.
Thank you. Mellissa.
Would you be kind enough to repeat the question one more time?
Absolutely. How have you or will you work to improve education in Brookings?
So the school district is close to my heart. I have 3 kids in there. I have a vested interest in its success, as well as sitting on the school board for 6 years. Care about the staff and students. I'm very involved as a parent in my kids' activities. I chaperone, I sit on buses, I go to different events, and so I enjoy being a participant and understanding what their education looks like. What I do know is that the funding formula is a complicated and difficult mountain to climb. We have taken a look at it a number of times over the last 2 years. It is one of our larger budget items already, and there are opinions in peer that it does not need to increase, so that would be a negotiation that would have to happen that would be pretty contentious. We also have fought for larger increases over the last few years, and we've seen that come into fruition as well. It is probably harder to feel it because of all the inflation and the higher costs for everything else, but there has been a concerted effort in trying to get higher dollars to teachers.
Thank you. Blake.
Great points on all sides. I think the biggest thing that people are not talking about when this conversation comes up is the student-to-teacher ratio, specifically in our district, is way higher than it should be. We have guidelines in legislation in the board of directors for a 12-to-1 student-to-teacher ratio. In Brookings, we're actually the highest in the state, somewhere closer to 16-to-1 in a report I found in 2022. But after talking to some of the people in the school district, there are some classes up to 30-to-1. You cannot expect a teacher to perform and students to excel when there's that much of a disproportionate balance. As a student myself, the reason I chose South Dakota State University is because of the student-teacher ratio. I didn't want to go to Minneapolis and sit in 250-person classes and just be another number. We can talk about pay all day, I really think we need to look at student-teacher ratio first.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. Roger, you'll start. How would you explain Constitutional Amendment E to the folks in District 7 and whether it should or should not pass?
Which one?
Constitutional Amendment E.
C?
E as in Edward.
All right. Amendment, for you folks that don't know what it is, Amendment E is where you change the gender from he to the governor, and I support that 1,000%. It's in the Constitution that you have to refer to when you're talking about statesman, governor as he. Well, that's pretty old school to me. It says, I'm just going to give you an example. If it says that he shall do this, it will be changed to the governor shall do this. Pretty simple. I support it 1,000%. I think it's really something that should have been done a long time ago. It has nothing to do with gender and all the other things that some people read into this law, but it's just changing he to the governor or he to the senator or congressman. So,
thank you. Mellissa.
Just not a lot to add. That's exactly what it does. So instead of referring to Kristi Noem as he, it will now say the governor shall. I think this also pertains to positions like lieutenant governors, Supreme Court justices, circuit court judges, and a few other positions where we have women in leadership roles. When the Constitution, our founding document, was drafted, women weren't even allowed to vote. And so when I'm talking to people about this bill, I've heard a couple of things like, well, are you going to have to change pronouns every time we change the gender of our governor? No. Is this a controversial bill in any way? No. This is a common sense bill that just brings our founding document up to our modern realities, where we have twice now elected Kristi Noem into the highest position in our state. So I support this fully.
Thank you. Blake.
Roger and Mellissa make amazing points. Yes, 100%. This just makes common sense. I could talk about it for a minute, but I highly recommend everyone read Erin Tobin's pro stance. I met her. She's a wonderful woman. Highly recommend you read that. Yeah.
Thank you. Fedora.
Hi, guys. See, guys is used for everybody, at least by me. Hi. This is a no-brainer. So let's not talk about it anymore. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Mellissa. What is your plan to address brain drain in the state of South Dakota?
I think brain drain has been a problem in South Dakota for a while, and there's a lot of different exciting programs in the university systems where we're trying to get ahead of the curve with technology and have programs to have those students come here. But then we need that follow-up step of also allowing the jobs, positions, and companies to be able to employ those. It all is coupled together with our extremely low unemployment rate and the thousands of job openings that we still have in South Dakota. So I think it will continue to be a point of study as we move forward. This has been a long-term issue for South Dakota, but we need to give students a reason to stay here and use their time and talents right here in South Dakota.
I believe this is a multifaceted problem. Not only do we have an issue with students leaving to seek higher education somewhere else, but we have people, say, moving to Minnesota because they have easier access to health care. They have higher paid just overall pay. I would really start tackling this problem by, 1, drastically raising the minimum wage, 2, expanding access to Medicare, Medicaid so people can actually afford health care, 3, spending more in education so families who want to start putting their kids into educational programs feel like they have a home in South Dakota. We just do not support the working family enough in this state, in my opinion, for them to want to stay here after they have gotten their education. There's so many other opportunities around the state that it makes it really hard for us to keep them here where they grew up.
Fedora.
Okay, I agree with my colleague, Mr. Stevens. And pretty much there are lots of things that we can deal with cost of living and all those things. Let's consider that the most healthy of plants are those that have crossed. You have bringing in. Well, you can look at the drain, but you could look at the bringing in of new talents. And we can actually put emphasis on such things like the SDSU, Wildlife and Fisheries. We can be the experts here, guys, bringing people into the system. A veterinary program would bring people in, and all these things allow our students to have more opportunities and also more reason to stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Roger.
That's a very good question. I didn't think that would come up today, but it is a huge problem in South Dakota. And actually, I have a campaign committee that meets every often to prepare for the election. And one of those members just told me the other night that, and I might get these numbers wrong, so he's in the audience, so don't correct me, but the School of Mines, I think, like when they graduate, 82% of those folks go out of state. But on the other hand, I've talked to the President Dunn, and he says if we can get him here to school and get them through 4 years, that we have like a fit. And again, this is 2-year-old data in my brain. 52% of those folks stay. But then also I heard a lot of those people stay just to go to graduate school. I think it really boils down to 3 things: environment, why do they want to be here, salary, how much we're going to pay them, and do we have good jobs for them in state. And I also talked to some folks about this, and they say that oftentimes these young kids leave, and then they end up coming back to South Dakota because they like what they had here before they left.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Blake. When elected, which committees would you want to be assigned to, and why?
I think the top of my list would have to be the Labor Committee. I would also love to be on Appropriations and the Taxing Committee. I feel like there's a lot of work to be done. Mainly for the Labor Committee, my entire campaign is built around rebuilding the middle class, making them the economic powerhouse they once were, and making families feel like they actually have a place here in South Dakota. The main reason for labor is just, I grew up in a blue-collar family, and seeing my dad and my brothers break their bodies over working construction for just pennies on the dollar from what their bosses make filled me with a kind of rage that I just cannot explain in public. So, yeah.
Great. Fedora.
Okay, guys. Committees, send me to peer, please. I want to be on the Education Committee, and I want to be on the Appropriations Committee. I am your educator with management background, okay? We need to have an educator who will be involved in the choices for the Curriculum Committee. The last Curriculum Committee met for social studies, and lots of the teachers I interviewed said that went south, okay? We have two coming up, mathematics and science. You need me there. I'm a scientist, a researcher, and a scholar. I need to help you make sure that curriculum committee has scientists on it, and I can do that. Appropriations to fix Brookings, we need to fix the funding of the education system. Thank you very much.
Roger.
Thank you for that question. My number one committee, and I requested it 2 years ago, was House Ed. And it's a committee not only do we pass some good stuff out of, but if you talk to the good senator over here, we also killed a lot of bad things, so it never makes it to the floor. That's important. And I've already been contacted, if reelected, I will be put on that committee. And I'm also on taxation, and I didn't know much about taxation, but I really enjoyed being on there, and I've learned a lot. One committee that I've requested to be on, if I'm reelected, is a Veterans Foreign Affairs, because I am a vet. I do have a hearing aid problem because of my service, and that's something that I would like to be part of as well. And I really would like to remain on rules review, because that one really, dives into all the rules and regulations that the agencies have to abide by.
Thank you. Mellissa.
So currently I'm on the House Health and Human Services and House Education Committees. I also serve on the Extraordinary Cost Fund Oversight Committee and was involved in the long-term care summer study. I also received, through a competitive application process, a BUILD Fellowship for Legislative Leadership Development. So I really believe that because of my experiences in healthcare and education, that those two committees, I can hit the ground running more quickly. But I would be happy to sit on any of the committees as needed. Education, I think we had a really good committee in this last year. We covered a lot of important topics. And because there's just a lot of policy to understand and review, it helped that on the school board, I'd already been kind of siphoning through policies for 6 years leading up to that. Thanks.
Thank you. Last question before closing remarks. We're going to try and squeeze one more in here. The first to answer this question will be Fedora. Are you committed to voting in your constituents' best efforts, or does the stance of your caucus take precedence?
Guys, I represent you, okay? I represent you, District 7. When I go to peer, I'm not a Democrat, Republican, Independent, or Libertarian. I am the representative for District 7. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Roger.
The caucus can be quite persuasive. However, when I ran 2 years ago, I said I ran for improving education and working on District 7 priorities. So certainly District 7 priorities would take precedent over the caucus.
Thank you. Mellissa.
I always do my very best to represent District 7. I will say, though, because we have such diverse perspectives on things, it's difficult to do that well. I try really hard, and part of the way that I do that is by having intentional conversations with people from all different perspectives and really trying to understand where everyone is at on an issue. That doesn't mean that everyone's going to align on those issues. I would say in Brookings, on a contentious issue, it's probably about 50% of the people won't like the way you vote. At the end of the day, you have a red button or a green button. There's no I don't know button. And so when I'm really reflecting on those decisions I'm making, I'm thinking about what's best for District 7 as a whole and the state of South Dakota.
Thank you. Blake?
I think Fedora put it perfectly. Yes, there is Republicans and Democrats, but I am here for you. The reason I am running is because I love District 7. I love Brookings. I love the school system here. I would not have made a different decision. I am very happy to be here, and I will do everything in my power to make your lives better.
Thank you. We'll move into 2-minute closing remarks. Excuse me. And for that, we'll start with Roger.
Well, I'm going to talk really fast because the first one I thought I was going to get done in no time, and this one is even longer than the first one. But in closing, I'd like to thank you folks for all being here this morning. Remember, this is a very important election. There's 7 ballot issues, and if you haven't picked one of these up, it's up from the Secretary of State. They're downstairs. As you walk out, grab one. They explain them very well, pros and cons. I hope this morning you saw a difference in experience and what you want us to accomplish in Pierre over the next 2 years, and who's going to get things done. When I ran 2 years ago, I told everybody that I'd work for educational issues and District 7 priorities. I also told people not only would I support education and District 7 issues, but also economic development, workforce development, and child care issues. I also would like to I also said I would like to build relationships and bring common sense back to Pierre, to the Capitol. And I think I've done that. I think I've kept my promises. I'd like to just take a moment to go through some of the accomplishments that we've had. They're just not all mine, but we've had through the Educational Committee. I was instrumental in drafting and passing a new teacher accountability bill that raises all South Dakota teacher starting salaries to $45,000. I sponsored and worked to pass an additional funds for the Teacher Apprenticeship Pathway Program that addresses teacher shortages. I supported the tuition freeze for South Dakota public universities, and we increased the maintenance and repair for the funds for the university, including a $3.9 million for SDSU. I'm proud of these accomplishments. And in closing, I would just like to ask for your support and vote again, because if I get your support and vote again, I can go back to Pierre and get on these committees and finish what I began. Thank you.
Thank you. Mellissa?
So I believe in being quick to listen and slow to speak. I engage in focused conversations with people from all different perspectives. I am genuinely listening and not working on a response or a quick and witty thing to say back to whatever you're saying to me. I am genuinely interested. Some of the issues that are closest to my heart include caring for the weak and vulnerable in our communities, supporting strong families and educational opportunities, and promoting mental health across the state. I also have a soft spot in my heart for both veterans, especially the one in the front row, and our youth, recognizing the unique challenges that they face. I draw upon my experience in servant leadership and public service to reflect thoughtfully on all sides of an issue. My goal is to make decisions that are not only well-informed, but also in the best interest of District 7. I would like to thank everyone for attending, for your time and your attention. Thank you for your support and also the opportunity to represent our district. It's been one of the greatest honors of my life to be able to do so, and I would humbly ask for your vote on November 5th.
Thank you. Blake?
Thank you all again for being here today. This was a lot nicer than I thought it was going to be, honestly. I'm glad this was a forum and not a debate. But again, my platform is pretty straightforward and simple. I will fight for fair wages, protect workers' rights, and ensure access to affordable health care, and make sure our kids receive the quality education they deserve. I've been around a lot of different types of people in this country, from living in Oklahoma in the oil fields to Oregon in the cherry fields to the Midwest in the cornfields. I've seen everyone struggle, and I've seen that we can work together to make a difference. And I'm glad I chose this district to settle down in because I feel like I can really make a difference here. What we really need is real change in Pierre, and I'm ready to bring your voices there. Together we can create a stronger, fairer South Dakota where everyone has the opportunity to succeed. That's why I'm asking for your support in this fight, and I'll work tirelessly to make sure the people of District 7 are heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Blake. Last but not least, Fedora.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to me. We've heard of many issues. We know education. What you've heard is that we're going to raise teacher pay. I say it has to go deeper than that. It has to go to a changing of the funding mechanism for the teachers. Okay? We have had legislative inaction. Both my colleagues say that they have worked so hard and all other to help with the teaching salaries. That may be true. The point is, the problem goes further than just raising the teacher salaries. We are 49th in the nation, next to Mississippi, in teacher compensation. The other thing that was not discussed is healthcare and medical autonomy. Over 14% of South Dakotans are uninsured, and rural areas face healthcare shortages. This lack of coverage leaves too many of our community members vulnerable. The current legislature has not made enough progress on healthcare. Okay, medical autonomy. Guys, we have medical experts. They have gone to school 8 years, 12 years to be the experts to work with you for decisions that are to be made about your family, not the legislatures. They've not gone to medical school. They don't know what they're talking about. And lastly, economic stability and workforce development. I only have 10 seconds, but bottom line, we need funding mechanisms. Tax the marijuana users. $22 billion, and I have to stop. Thank you very much.
That's time. Thank you so much. Certainly, thank you all, candidates, for your time and attention, your efforts thus far to kind of work your way through the process. Thank you for attending today and your responsiveness to the questions of our audience. Just a reminder that there will be rebroadcast on Swiftel Channel 20 and Mediacom Channel 9, 9/28 at 9 p.m., on the 29th at 6 p.m., the 30th at 6 p.m. This forum will also be available for viewing on the Brookings Area Chamber of Commerce YouTube page on Monday afternoon. Thank you to the Public Affairs Committee, Cool Beans, members of the community, certainly attendees for your engagement in the process. Thank you again so much. Thank you.